Hello and welcome back. So this last fall, 2023, I decided I needed to build a gate and a small fence. Now, something kind of unique is that my fence is removable and my gate, you'll notice there are no cross bracing. Let me explain why and how this works. There was an old gate and fence here before, but getting this old post out would have been quite challenging, so I decided to leave it because it was in decent shape. And in the ground there was old concrete from the last post, so I just decided to make the gate a little bit bigger, and that worked out. And close to the house I needed another post. There was also concrete in the ground. I just dug the hole closer to the house to miss the existing concrete, and that will also work. Right on. Got the post set, and something kind of funny, you can always tell a furniture guy, right? Walnut. Yeah, man, whatever works. There must have been a couple of different gates on this old post, and multiple holes had been left from that existing hardware, so I decided to cut some of that away. I'll add a piece of oak. This will give me a fresh and solid location for the new hardware, and doing this will be way easier than digging up this entire post. And don't give me any crap about the way I'm using a saw. I've been using a saw for 40 plus years. I don't have any problems with it. If you don't like the way I do it, simply don't do it. And there we go. Fantastic progress. I left the posts tall, even though I have these plastic sleeves and caps on them. I left them long and I can cut those later. And now I'll make a template that follows the slope of the ground. I had a big stash of aspen, but it was pretty warped. But I was able to pick some really clean pieces. But since it is wood, even though it's going to get painted, I'm going to cut these bevels at the top of the pickets so that the water can drain. And this was an easy way to do it over at the chop saw. With all the long bevels cut, I made this funky little stop to create those adjacent bevels. I couldn't use a stop off the other end because they're different lengths, but now this should help dramatically shed the water. Dramatically? Yeah, drastic and dramatic. Dork. Now, although this aspen is pretty clean on the faces, I was taking a bit of a chance because a lot of it is warped. But it was a small gamble, in my opinion, to make this gate or attempt to make it even with this warped lumber. So, this is a reason that I'm ganging a bunch of these boards together because they're so warped. And okay, if you don't like this or you don't feel that this is safe, which, yeah, there's potential issue. I've done this many times. I've never had a problem. But if you don't like it, it's simple. Don't do it. So I'm working on all these slats, and occasionally I'll come across something that needs addressed. So there's a little bit of a chip out here. These I can rip down to about 2 1/4. So I can just put a mark here to let me know about this. When I'm cutting these, I can say, okay, I need to rip this edge to get rid of that, right? Also, I will mark the other side with this loop, which means flip it over to see what's going on. And even though this is just a fence that's, exterior, I can chamfer all those corners quickly with a block plane, and this will help adhesion of the paint, especially on the corners. Plus, it's just kind of fun. And hey, look at that fire starter. I have this largish table that covers my vacuum bag when I'm not using it, and it's also where I do shipping. I thought it'd be a good assembly area so I could lay out these weird angles for this gate to follow that ground contour, and 2 screws on each slat per rail with Titebond 3 exterior. And I'll show more of the purpose of these pins here in a bit, but these I just made out of some 1/2 inch aluminum rod. Added some little notches for better gription and used epoxy to set those in place. This probably doesn't make much sense at this point. It will soon, and actually this rendering is upside down because of the way this will be cut with a shaper origin. These will be made of solid plastic, and it will create a cradle of sorts for that aluminum pin. And no self-respecting woodworker leaves saw cuts, even on plastic. And a small chamfer will clean up all those corners and just make easier insertion of the pins. And a spoiler alert, this removable fence works incredibly well. I'm so glad I made it. This has to be making sense now. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I mean, yeah, it is awesome. I aligned all the slats on top. I left the bottom a little bit long, and that way I could follow my template to fit the slope of the ground and cut those all off at once here at the sliding table saw. Of course, a simple straight edge and skill saw would work, or perhaps a track saw. Both the fence and the gate are tapered in height to fit the ground. And for me, a track saw is probably one of those tools where I'm thinking, yeah, I would probably use it more than I thought I would. And yeah, I may get one in the future. Since I have a sliding table saw, I just haven't felt like I need one. I added some stainless steel all thread washers and nuts to give that wooden post a little bit more support by anchoring it to the chain link fence post. To minimize the effects of water getting in those screw holes and under the paint, I bondoed all those holes, and I can't imagine an easier way than getting all that bondo flush with the surface, other than the glorious belt sander. Of course, both the gate and the fence were both built the same way, using 2 screws and a lot of glue where each slat meets the horizontal member. And the reason I didn't add a diagonal support on the gate is I thought it looked unsightly. I believe I can gain the strength I need with, strength in numbers. I actually put a clamp across the diagonals and squeezed on that. It is very rigid. And here I'm just hitting all the surfaces with 220 grit and some Maroon 5 Scotch Brite after the primer, 2 coats of primer. After everything was sanded, I blew everything off with compressed air and then wiped down all these areas where the two, where the horizontal and the verticals meet. And I'm adding some exterior caulking. Again, the plan is to prevent or mitigate water infiltration into those areas. Once the water gets under the paint, it's over. I have a saying when it comes to exterior wood, and it goes something like this: wood is only impervious to the elements when it's a tree, and even that statement is limited. And here's the fence after 1 coat of paint. I'm going to give this at least 1 more coat to give it a heavy build. I love the way this looks, and those bevels should help like water rolling off a duck's back. Light sanding between each coat, and there's areas that are kind of fuzzy because of aspen kind of has that fuzzy feel in areas where you cut it, and so I'm just sanding everything back, and I keep doing this till everything gets smooth. And rather than spraying with a small brush, I can add extra material on the end grain. Oh, and by the way, I am cleaning between coats with denatured alcohol, and I'm thinning with mineral spirits. Yeah, man, there we go. This is 2 coats of primer, 3 coats of paint. That is looking really good. It's very almost encapsulated with paint, and hopefully this wooden fence and gate will hold up to the weather. Oh, and incidentally, the horizontal members were pretty straight, and each slat, even though they were warped, I just alternated them, and that counteracted that effect. I even added a small bead of caulking around these dowels, pins, whatever you want to call them, just to keep water from getting in there or under the paint. All right, here it is. Man, I got to tell you, I love oil-based paints. The finish is just beautiful. It feels like plastic. Super smooth, so that should be really sealed, right? And this is what I use. So this has 5 coats. It has 2 coats of a primer, which was a Kills exterior oil-based primer, and then 3 coats of this oil-based enamel. Bare, so I just got this from Home Depot. It's thinned with mineral spirits, and I just thinned it as little as I could to get it to spray, get it to atomize correctly. And I believe the tip was a 1.8 millimeter on my DeVilbiss gravity gun. So yeah, that should keep the cat in, believe it or not. I have our cat trained to, well, she doesn't know she can jump over fences for one, but she stays in the backyard. Yeah. Yeah, man. That's how you do it. That's how I do it. Shop made or shaper made solid plastic blocks, and I found these painted stainless steel screws. This gate hardware seems decent. It's fully adjustable, spring loaded or self closing, and it has these plastic caps. Haha, look at this. So you can see how that cradle and the dowel works, or that pin. And now when I need to, mow grass or weed whack by the fence, I'm not going to chew it up with the string of the weed whacker. I can just remove it. Quick, easy, put it back. Yeah, man, I'm going to love that. Had minimal time and effort in this, so hopefully it'll hold up. Got our first snow of the season, and the water seems to be draining well. We'll see how it does over time. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you got something out of it. Remember to click, like, subscribe, learn,